I generate 6,200 inbound leads every single month, and these leads aren't just inbound, they're warm, they're hot, they know who I am, most of them are ready to buy, and I'm going to show you in this video exactly how I do it. Now, a very quick screenshot, just to put your mind at ease. This is a tool known as ManyChat. It's like an automation software, since most of these leads, in fact, all of these leads were generated for Instagram. So you can see on the left here, from the 15th of November to the 15th of December, I generated over 6,222 leads. These are all conversations that then my setters had in the DMs, and of course, you know, I'm sure you're wondering, how much did you actually make out of all these leads? I'll reveal that number at the end, but you can rest assured that I wouldn't be making a video about lead generation if I didn't convert a lot of them at the back end. And you're also probably wondering, yeah, how much money does 6,222 leads actually make? Now, the stats that this actually results in is 85% show up rate, a 50% close rate, and 80% profit margins for my service-based business. Now, I run a few things. I run a marketing agency and like a coaching program. So you could kind of see it as like a done for you and a do-it-yourself kind of model. And these are the stats that are actually produced for my business. And now there's not many other people in the space, in the game, with an agency or with a coaching program that can throw these stats at you. And it's because not many people pretty much almost run exclusively through organic. Now, I do some paid media, but it's nowhere near with the kind of results that I generate from organic content. And now I'm going to show you exactly how I do all of this, how it all works, and I'm going to break it down to 3 different sections that you can kind of see here. So we're going to go firstly, actually 4 different sections. We're firstly going to go through the basic inbound lead principles, and then we're going to go through how to identify these leads, how to attract them, and then how to convert them at the back end. Okay, and we're going to start off with how to actually the basic inbound lead principles and how they actually work. Now, like I said, these leads were all generated through the platform Instagram. And it's important to first note that these are not your average leads. These are not your leads that you can just pull off a lead list from some random stranger that you meet in an alleyway. Like, these are leads who know what I am. They know who I am. They know what I'm talking about. They have basically put their hand up and say, hey, I'm interested. I want to learn more. Most of them like me. They know me. They trust me. And they care about the thing that I'm talking about. And trust me when I say that one inbound organic lead is easily worth 100. I would even probably argue multiple hundred, maybe even 1,000 paid and outbound leads altogether, because one inbound lead, like I say, they have trust, they have rapport, they have credibility, they know who I am. There's already an element of like hierarchical kind of social proof there, and nothing beats that, absolutely nothing. Probably not 1,000, but I would definitely say one inbound lead is definitely worth around 100 paid or outbound leads. So let me explain how it all works. Now, I'm going to quickly show you like the kind of funnel and how it all pieces together, and then I'm going to dive into the funnel in more detail and explain how it all works. So firstly, you have top of funnel content. This is mainly for followers and noise, mainly for traction for followers, just to get people to understand who I am, to see me, to see my brand, and to kind of build a bit of like a parasocial relationship where they feel like they know me because of the content that they're seeing. And as you can see here, that works incredibly well for me. And then you go down to middle of funnel content, and middle of funnel content, I say here unfollows because that's kind of really what I'm going for, and I'm going to explain why I mean that in a minute. But I'm actually going for people to unfollow me. So as you can see here, from all the big content, very top of funnel content, 15,000 followers, 9,300 unfollowers, which means overall 6,000 followers. Now, this is good. This is the golden stuff. This is the stuff that most people miss out on, but it's actually, this is incredibly important. And then we go to pain point hunting, which is listening to your audience, finding pain points that they already have, comments that they're asking, things that they're saying, I want this, I need this, and that kind of identifies or helps you identify where you could potentially create these lead magnets, these resources around that you then give to your audience to actually generate conversations. So you identify where their pain points are, you create lead magnets and test through content, as you can see here. Again, I'm going to go into all of this in much more detail, so don't you stress. Get feedback. If you find a winner, fantastic. You double down, you post to a story CTA. If you don't find a winner, you rinse and repeat until you do find a winner. Then you set up ManyChat automation, set up a strategy, a setting strategy in the DMs, and then you obviously book in calls. Now, this is a very, very, very brief run through, but this is what I'm going to dive into in this video in far more detail. So let's start off with the identify. Now, like I said, there's a few different kind of portions to this I'm going to run through. Identify, attract, and convert. Simply because I believe this is the easiest way to break it down. First, you identify your audience and your kind of your good audience, I would almost say, your prime audience, your market, and then you go into attract them, which is kind of like pulling them out of your mass market, all of your followers, and obviously you convert them out the back end. And this is purely, simply how I generated over 6,200 leads last month, and how I converted a big portion of them. So you start off with top of funnel heavy content. Now, as you can see on the here left, similar to the videos I showed you before, you've got videos that just performed well, stuff that did well, stuff that is generating you eyeballs. And the whole purpose of this, like the whole kind of main objective of all of this, is that you want to make content that gets more eyeballs, brings more people into your ecosystem. You want to position yourself or kind of treat yourself like a funnel, right? you want to get people into the ecosystem in the first place so they know who you are. It's incredibly important because you can't convert people if you don't actually get people into your house in the first place. So you've got some posts on the left here, some posts on the right here. You can see this generates views, which is good. Now, it's also important to remember that this doesn't only build a following, but at the same time, it builds trust, it builds credibility, and builds rapport. The whole idea is to drive awareness to me and the brand. Okay, that's why I'm posting this top of funnel content. And it's important that you know that it's applicable, but it's also not specific. And what I mean by that is that the content has to be applicable to the audience that I want to end up converting, but I don't want to make the content specific to their pain points and their troubles and what they want and their dream outcome, because that's not what I'm going for here. Okay, because there's a kind of a few step process I have to go through in order to get to the point where I'm specific. So I want to make content that's applicable to people, but it isn't going to make them want to convert out the get-go because I don't know if they're the right leads yet. And you want to make content that doesn't just talk about their pain points or desires, just things they can relate to. That's incredibly important, and that is top of funnel, basically meaning I am trying to contact as many people as I possibly can, get in front of their face at the very, very top of the funnel. So they are somewhat within my ICP, within my audience, but they're not necessarily a qualified lead who would buy my stuff. And then we go down here, right? The aim is to make content that is general enough not to suffocate your reach, but not too broad to bring in the wrong audience. And that's incredibly important as well, because you're not posting this kind of top of funnel content to convert. You're not going to convert with this content. This is the content that lays the foundations for what you then go on to build on top of. Okay. And the goal with all of this is incredibly important. Now, the goal, like I said previously, is to actually get followers and then get unfollowers. Because this is kind of the process of like, you're bringing in lots of people and then you're actually excluding a lot of people, because not all of those people that you bring in, if I brought in 15,000 people, these aren't all going to be perfect leads. They're just not by default, right? There's only going to be a smaller portion of those people who are actually perfect leads and perfect kind of qualified leads that fit into my ICP. So the whole purpose of getting on followers is actually when you start to go through a middle of funnel content, right? So the goal is to get followers, and then through middle of funnel content, that's when you start to kind of like disclude these people, and you do this through, as you can see, middle of funnel content here. So this is different types of content to the content that I showed you above, right? Where it's very viral, it's very applicable. I'm just trying to reach a mass audience, talking about money and entrepreneurship and all this kind of stuff and content. And then we go down to this type of content, which is much more middle of funnel. So here I'm being a bit more like analytical. I'm being a bit more data driven. I'm being a bit more specific. And the whole idea is that I'm reverse engineering these videos where I'm excluding people who would never buy from me in the first place. Okay, through being more specific in what you say and how you say it. Now, I love to see this in a kind of process of that when you're making content, when you're making the hook of your video, the whole idea is to try and be as applicable to as many people as possible, to get as many people to stay for the hook and then watch the rest of this video. With this kind of content, I'm kind of doing the opposite. I'm actually discluding people throughout my hook by talking about stuff that I know the majority of people don't know what I'm talking about. They aren't going to be interested. They aren't going to convert out the back of it. So here I'm making content where my aim is to get unfollowers from the people that don't truly resonate with my core stuff. Okay. And that's good, because for the people that do stay followed, do remain followed, those are the people that fit perfectly into my ICP. Well, most of them anyway. And I do this through this type of content, which is a bit more data driven, a bit more analytical, not very viral, but that works an absolute charm. Okay. Because this, like I said, is the process of sifting out, your followers. It's almost like gold sifting. I don't know if you've seen these videos where people, they go through like, I don't even know what it is, like quarries and all this kind of stuff, where they'll pick up a bunch of mud in like a little kind of bowl thing, and they'll sift out all the mud. And at the very, very bottom, after all of this process of like sifting out the mud and this tedious process, they're left with a bit of gold. And that's the same process that you're doing here, or I'm doing here with my content, is I'm actually trying to sift out the majority of my followers and get rid of all the mud. So I'm left with a few tiny nuggets of gold, but that gold is obviously worth an incredibly large amount of money. And that's the whole process of this content. Okay, you start off with top of funnel heavy content, and then you work your way down. Once you get some followers, once you get some people into the ecosystem, you'll work your way down to middle of funnel content. And you can see actually this is all from the same time frame, 15th of November to the 15th of December. So over the period of a month, 15,000 followers, 9,300 unfollowers. That's good. I almost want more unfollowers than I do overall followers, if that makes sense, for people to stay, because this tells me that, cool, I'm getting rid of as many people as possible. It's kind of like, I don't know, having people on like an email newsletter. There is no point in having people on an email newsletter who would not end up converting and buying your stuff. Same thing with followers. You don't want people to follow your account who wouldn't buy your stuff if you said, hey, do you want this? You only want your true followers to buy. It's the kind of 1,000 true fans principle. That's what you're going for here. And this is the process truly of of identifying people. Okay, you're identifying it through making your funnel incredibly wide at the top, and then you make it much thinner as you go down, so thin to the point where most people die off, most people suffocate, but the few people that are left, these are perfect leads for the process of sifting out your gold. And then of course we move over to the attract phase, and this is where you kind of take the people that are still here, the kind of perfect leads in which you would consider they're interested in my core stuff, they will potentially buy my thing, and then we actually start to lay out traps for them to basically bring them in, put them into our DMs and start converting. So as you can see here, now we start to lay our bait to get them interested, ready to buy leads to come to us. This is the whole focus. We're starting to lay down traps, which is going to make us a lot of money. So this is what the process looks like in doing this. So like I said, you make much more middle of funnel content, okay? And with the middle of funnel content, the whole focus of making middle of funnel content isn't only to nurture your audience more and kind of build trust and credibility, but also you're looking for pain points, your pain point spotting. So this is a comment that I just screenshotted off a random post that I clicked on. And you can see here is a perfect kind of example of a comment of what you're looking for, where people are asking questions, question mark. People are also liking the fact that other people are asking questions. I mean, what does it show you when someone else is liking a comment? It shows you that other people are interested in the same thing. This is golden. This is perfect, because if someone has a problem, someone has a question around your middle of funnel content that they're interested in, and they say, how do I do this? How can I do this? How do I build the trust? How do I do this whole process? That tells you that number one, your audience is hungry. So it's good. You've got the right ICP. They're hungry. They want to find out more. They have the pain that you can solve. Perfect. It also gives you perfect indication, because it gives you an indication of what you should start to create free resources around, right? So you identify, what do they want? What are their pains? What are they asking for? And of course, how can you actually help them? And then you move down to the solution. So this is where you want to take these questions that they're asking, and bear in mind, like if you've been doing this well enough, so you create top of funnel content, you create middle of funnel content, right, which is much more specific, much more detailed, you will get a good amount of eyeballs on that middle of funnel content. You'll get a good amount of comments, people in the comments saying, hey, I want this, I have this pain point, how can I solve this? That gives you an indication for what resources you should start to create. All right. And in this case, I've just got a few examples here. I mean, these are lead magnets basically, and you can create these in any kind of format you want. The whole idea is it's called a lead magnet because the literal idea is that you are trying to take people that are in your audience, hold a magnet above them, and seeing what kind of people jump to that magnet because they're interested in what you have to talk about. And you do this through lead magnets. So for this example, you've got a content metrics tracker sheet right here. Now, I made a piece of content, I made a post, where I spoke about how I track all my content and why I track all of my content, okay? And what I did, and the reason I did that actually here is because in one of my previous videos, I had a comment where someone said, how do I know what content performs? How do I track my content? Golden. Someone's got a question, cool, I can create a resource around that question, as I did. I then created a post around that thing. Now, the reason I created a post around this lead magnet rather than just saying, hey, if you want this free thing, comment this and you'll get this, is because there is a big put, like whenever you create lead magnets, not all of them work. Not all lead magnets are perfect. Like I do this over and over and over again. I find problems that people have. I find questions that they have, and I create lead magnets around those things. I mean, if I go back over here, you'll be able to see, where am I? I create a lot of lead magnets. Like I probably have well over 100 lead magnets I've created where I've seen someone has a problem. I thought, okay, cool. I'm going to create a resource to that problem that solves their problem temporarily. It gives them a feeling of momentum, a feeling of this solution. And I create loads of them. I mean, you can see here very clearly, some of them completely miss, right? 28 people wanted this one. 38 people wanted this one. 219 people wanted this one. But some of them hit. 3,300 people wanted this one. 765 people wanted this one. And these ones that hit, these are the ones that you double down on. So basically what I'm trying to say is that your content over here, your middle of funnel content, where are we? This is kind of like your testing grounds, you know, the middle of funnel content. This is where you test what people care about the most. And as you can see here, this was a different video. I had a different lead magnet in it, believe it or not, but this was a different video where I had a different lead magnet in it as well. And it was like a tracking sheet. Not many people wanted that. And that's fine, because that gives me the indication that it's not something that's so in demand. Because even when you're sourcing for problems and you're looking at problems, you're saying, right, someone has a question around this. Not every single problem is going to be relevant, which means that you want to create a lot of lead magnets, a lot of resources, and you want to start to give them out. Here I've got the 4-pillar organic client acquisition system. Here I've got a 20K per month offer SOP, how to create a really good offer. And some of these did well, some of them didn't, but that's okay, because not every single thing is going to be a jackpot, you know? So what I did is I took this one, I created a post about it. Now, for this post, for this example, what happened is I got 556 people commenting saying, I want this template. Now, what did that tell me? Now, as actually half of this, because I replied to all of the comments. So it was 220, whatever it is, 240, something like that, right? So 240 people commented saying, I want this thing, which was good. That tells me that, okay, cool, I've created something here that is interesting to people to some kind of extent. They're somewhat interested in what I have to talk about. Amazing. So that gave me the indication that the thing I have created is good. Like, again, if middle of funnel content is your testing grounds in this sense, you're looking for winners. That's the whole focus here, okay? And if for this example, I found what I would consider a winner. Now, for me, some winners are, 250 people saying, I want this thing. Some winners are 10,000 people saying, I want this thing. But it's quite clear to me that if I have 5 people saying, I want this thing, it's probably not a winner. Not many people want it. Some people just comment for a resource for the sake of commenting for a resource, okay? And those are not the kind of people that I want to sell to. So here, what did I do? I saw enough people commented. I then created a lead magnet around this, a content planner lead magnet, where I said, okay, cool. I'm going to give this out right here. And I gave it out through my socials. Fantastic, right? This gave me proof of concept that it works. Now, the problem here that you have to understand is that this is still a cold audience, okay? The people who commented on this post is still a cold audience. They don't necessarily know who I am. And why is that? Well, it's because this post obviously went out to my For You page or people's For You pages, right? It went out to the feed. So this is the analytics, the stats from this post right here. Right, you can see it reached 50% followers, 50% non-followers, which means half the people here who saw this were cold. They didn't actually know who I am. They didn't trust me. They didn't like me, maybe. They wouldn't buy my stuff because I don't know who I am. So these were cold people. So what did I do? Firstly, identified that this is actually a lead magnet that people enjoyed. Okay, cool. I knew that they wanted that, but it was still a cold audience. So what did I then go and do? My whole focus, my main goal is to make it so that the people that are saying, I want this thing, are all of my followers, ideally anyway. So this is an example. This is a screenshot from a story post. Now, why is story post such a good example of this? Because story posts contain a warm audience. Very, very rarely, 0.5 to a couple percent of your story viewers will actually not be your followers. And they would have found your story because someone shared it to them, or I don't even know how you find a story that you're not following someone. I suppose someone clicked on your profile and they clicked on a story. These are from non-followers. I want to ideally advertise to these people, these followers. Why? Because my followers aren't just followers. They are tried and tested followers. They are followers that have been sifted out, right? These people here, for example, right? These people, it's a cold audience. These people are technically still middle of funnel people, right? Then they're not perfect. They don't know me very well. They don't like me. They don't trust me. They're middle of funnel people. I want to ideally only talk to people who have been sifted, who are my golden people. Okay. And I do that through story posts because I know that the people that watch my stories are the people who like me. Now, this is the warm audience. So what did I then do? I then created a story post where I basically gave away this content sheet lead magnet. Now, I created a story post and this works so fantastically because people who saw this and liked it then commented and said, I wanted this thing. So this is a screenshot from the story stats where people saw it, and you can see that 542 people said, I want this thing. So 542 people replied to my story here and said, cool, I want the thing that you have that you're giving away, the thing that you're offering. That's exactly what I'm looking for because it's not just 542 leads. These are leads that know me, they like me, they trust me, they would buy my stuff because they have already seen me. There's a proof of concept there. I'm an authority figure in their eyes. That's why this stuff is so golden. And of course, I then created an automation around it. Sent over 748 triggers for people that commented on the post and people that like my story. And what does this do? This starts a conversation. I say, what service do you sell? People start telling me about their service and what they sell. I start up a conversation from there, and it all starts to kind of like to develop into a conversation and then a sales call. And then obviously from then onwards, a lot of money is made. And I'm going to go on to convert in a second, but this is an incredibly important part of the process. You need to understand why I do this the way I do it. And only this way will generate me a lot of leads, because I can most definitely make this whole video about, hey, look how many leads I generate, but actually the leads made me no money. Now, they would have made me no money if I didn't go through this sifting process of actually sifting out the rubbish and the noise and the unqualified leads and the leads that aren't in my ICP from the ones that are. But because I went through this sifting process and then and only then gave out the lead magnet, the people that saw my lead magnet were my true audience, the people who actually cared about what I'm talking about. Do you kind of pick up what I'm putting down here? And that is the process of actually attracting these people. That's the process of putting down the trap, laying the cheese and letting them come to you. Because also they are inbound. They have voluntarily put their hand up and said, I want this thing. Where can I get it? How can I find it? That's not like a lead, like I say, that you get off you get off a lead list, or not a lead that you get from outbound email, or not a lead that you get from paid media. These are people that have actively said, I want this thing. How do I get it? It's golden. And then we move on to convert. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail here because, to be honest, this could be an entire video on itself. And I probably will create a video on how to convert people through your DMs. But nonetheless, the process looks like this. First, you converse, right? So people that have actually said, I want this lead magnet, you have a chat with them. You talk to them about different things. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, this is what I do. Ask questions. There's like a list of questions that I make my setters go through personally. Now, this can either be you in the DMs or you get an SDR, a sales development kind of position where they would conversate with your leads in the DMs and book on calls. I do that because I have a substantial enough following and I've been running this system for long enough to the point of where I know exactly what I need. But step one is converse, have a chat with them. Step two is identify pain. Do they have pain points that we can actually solve? Which is why their questions around this. It's a conversation. It's a how can we help you? Do you need help with this? If they do, fantastic. We've identified the pain. Then we go on to qualify. And for the qualification process, we're basically saying, are they a perfect lead? Are they qualified to work with us? And then we do a temperature check, which is like, do you actually care about this? Do you want to solve this problem? I'd appreciate that so much. I'm so down. And then of course you book in a call, which will be a case of yeah, cool. Click on this link, book in a call. Looking forward to chat with you. And that is obviously how you do that. And then obviously from there, there's going to be a portion of people that show up to the call, a portion of people that close. But like I said previously about my stats on all of this, where am I? I'm lost. All my stats, 85% show up rate, 50% close rate, 80% profit margins. The reason that these are how they are, and the only reason that they can be like this is because of the previous process that these leads have gone through. They haven't seen an ad for the first time ever. And they're like, who the hell is this guy? I'm interested, but I don't really care, but I'm somewhat interested. That's why they show up, because I have authority. They close because they most definitely have the problem that I can solve. And I've done that through the process of my content. And the profit margin is incredibly high because I don't pay any money for ads and I don't pay like random expenses that you typically have to when you run a very bloated agency. And that's all for my service-based business. And that's basically how it works. That is the process. These 4 things here. Well, that's just a basic principle, but it's identify, attract, and then convert out the back end. Now, hopefully this does make sense. I mean, I know we're like 23 minutes in now to the video, but hopefully this kind of gives you the context that you need. And this works time and time again. Like it really does. I've been running this system now for years and years and years. And this was just last month's leads. Like this isn't like the last year. This is 1 month's worth of leads. I do this every single month, sometimes a little bit higher, sometimes a little bit lower, but not always are more leads better. Sometimes you start to bring in the wrong people. So, I've had some better months than I did with the 6,222 leads with 2,500 leads. And that just happens. It depends on the content I make and who I'm talking to and all this kind of stuff. But everything I just showed you here, we actually do professionally within my service that I actually sell people on through doing this. Like it's a weird system, but we actually help people do this. So we help you turn social media into your most profitable client acquisition channel using these systems and these processes and these tools. Now, very brief CTA at the end. If you want to check it out, if you want to see how you can work with me and my team and do all of this with us, or have us deploy it for you, completely done for you, you have to lift a finger, as well as help you make all the content and all this kind of stuff. Check the link out in the description if you're somewhat interested. If you're not, but you want to find out more, click on the channel, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next video where you're bound to see more bangers like this. See you there.